Hello, friends and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Music, and I got some good stuff for us today. What is it? We're reading the book Think and Grow Rich together, and we are past all of the 13 principles. We're past the six ghost of fear. We're past the seventh evil, and now we're today we're going to focus on some self-analysis test questions. Right, these are going to be some pretty hard-hitting questions that I'm going to repeat from the book Think and Grow Rich. And essentially, the whole purpose of it is to really do a big introspection. And we're trying to the purpose of these questions is essentially to find out like where are our weaknesses, right? Like I understand that they say that a lot of the rich people don't necessarily focus on their weaknesses. What they do is they'll focus on their strengths and they'll go all in on their strengths. And I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but essentially it is nice to understand or become aware about like where your weaknesses lie and working from there, I would say. So that is the goal today. I'm going to get right into the book, and as usual, whatever thoughts come to my mind, I'll say them out loud. But I really want to dive deep into these questions because they are good stuff, and I don't want to waste any of your time. Okay, so we are on page 361 from Think and Grow Rich. If you got the deluxe version, and we are on the self-analysis test questions. Okay, I'm just going to fire off a ton of questions, and I really just want you to think about them. And especially if you got this book, I would highly recommend going through them again because I think Napoleon Hill says that it's best that you give a whole day towards these questions and answering them. And so what I'm here to do is just say them out loud. And then my goal throughout the whole day is to just think about these questions and think about what they mean. Okay, so first question. Do you complain often of feeling bad? And if so, what is the cause? Do you find fault with other people at the slightest provocation? Do you frequently make mistakes in your work? And if so, why? Are you sarcastic and offensive in your conversation? Do you deliberately avoid the association of anyone? And if so, why? Do you like your occupation? If not, why? Do you often feel self pity? And if so, why? Are you envious of those who excel you? To which do you devote most time? Thinking of success or thinking of failure? Are you gaining or losing self confidence as you grow older? Do you learn something of value from all mistakes? Are you permitting some relative or acquaintance to worry you? And if so, why? Are you sometimes in the clouds and at other times in the depths of despondency? Who has the most inspiring influence upon you? What is the cause? Do you tolerate negative or discouraging influences which you can avoid? Are you careless in your personal appearance? If so, when and why? Have you learned how to drown your troubles by being too busy to be annoyed by them? Would you call yourself a spineless weakling if you permitted others to do your thinking for you? Do you neglect internal bathing until auto intoxication makes you ill tempered and irritable? How many preventable disturbances annoy you, and why do you tolerate them? Do you resort to liquor, narcotics, or cigarettes to quiet your nerves? If so, why do you not try willpower instead? Does anyone nag you? And if so, for what reason? Do you have a definite major purpose? And if so, what is it and what plan have you for achieving it? Do you suffer from any of the 6 basic fears? If so, which ones? Have you a method by which you can shield yourself against the negative influence of others? Do you make deliberate use of autosuggestion to make your mind positive? Which do you value most, your material possessions or your privilege of controlling your own thoughts? Are you easily influenced by others against your own judgment? Has today added anything of value to your stock of knowledge or state of mind? Do you face squarely the circumstances which make you unhappy or sidestep the responsibility? Do you analyze all mistakes and failures and try to profit by them? Or do you take the attitude that it is not your duty? Can you name 3 of your most damaging weaknesses? And what are you doing to correct them? Do you encourage other people to bring their worries to you for sympathy? Do you choose from your daily experiences lessons or influences which aid in your personal advancement? Does your presence have a negative influence on other people as a rule? What habits of other people annoy you most? Do you form your own opinions or permit yourself to be influenced by other people? Have you learned how to create a mental state of mind which you can shield yourself against all discouraging influences? All right, I want to pause on that question, right? Have you learned how to create a mental state of mind with which you shield yourself against all discouraging influences? Right? Like, remember, we said multiple times how state of mind keeps popping up in this book, and this state of mind, which you can shield yourself against all discouraging influences, is kind of a part of this entire state of mind that he refers to, known as money consciousness. So I think this is a pretty big question to ask yourself. I'll repeat it one more time. Have you learned how to create a mental state of mind with which you can shield yourself against all discouraging influences? Does your occupation inspire you with faith and hope? Are you conscious of possessing spiritual forces? Hold up. Are you conscious of possessing spiritual forces of sufficient power to enable you to keep your mind free from all forms of fear? Are you conscious of possessing spiritual forces of sufficient power to enable you to keep your mind free from all forms of fear? Okay, what does that question mean, right? We're talking about spiritual forces. So it's a little bit on the hoorah side, but understand that he's saying of sufficient power, right? So I remember a few times he mentions power in this book, right? Like power in the mastermind, especially, and other ways to really access this power within you. And he's saying, like, are you aware that you do have this power to keep your mind free from all 6 forms of fear that we went over? Does your religion help you to keep your own mind positive? Do you feel it is your duty to share other people's worries? If so, why? If you believe that birds of a feather flock together, what have you learned about yourself by studying the friends whom you attract. What connection, if any, do you see between the people with whom you associate most closely and any unhappiness you may experience? That's a good question worth pondering. I would really recommend, if you do have the book Think and Grow Rich, after you watch this video, go back and look at these questions closely, and just keep in mind that I think it's his intention that you spend a whole day really answering these questions. So that's a good one to think about. Like, what connection do you see between the people whom you associate most closely with and any unhappiness you may experience? Could it be possible that some person whom you consider to be a friend is, in reality, your worst enemy because of his negative influence on your mind? By what rules do you judge who is helpful and who is damaging to you? So that's interesting. What rules do you have for yourself in terms of that? Are your intimate associates mentally superior or inferior to you? How much time out of every 24 hours do you devote to A, your occupation, B, sleep, C, play and relaxation, D, acquiring useful knowledge, and E, plain waste? Okay, we're on top of page 365 if you are following along. Who among your acquaintances, A, encourages you most, B, cautions you most, C, discourages you most, and D, helps you most in other ways? What is your greatest worry? Why do you tolerate it? What is your greatest worry, and why do you tolerate it? Going back to page 355 on this book, I just want to repeat this, that at the bottom of this page, he said that kill the habit of worry in all of its forms by reaching a general blanket decision, emphasize the word decision, that nothing which life has to offer is worth the price of worry. With this decision will come poise, peace of mind, and calmness of thought, which will bring happiness. So let's go back to this question. What is your greatest worry, and why do you tolerate it? When others offer you free, unsolicited advice, do you accept it without question or analyze their motive? What, above all else, do you most desire? Do you intend to acquire it? Are you willing to subordinate all other desires for this one? How many times daily do you devote to acquiring it? So this goes back, I guess, to The One Thing. There's that book called The One Thing, and I notice a lot of people suggest just focusing on that one thing. So what above all else do you most desire? Do you intend to acquire it? And are you willing to subordinate all other desires for this one? How much time daily do you devote to acquiring it? So this is some deep questions. Okay. Do you change your mind often? If so, why? Do you usually finish everything you begin? Are you easily impressed by other people's business or professional titles, college degrees, or wealth? Are you easily influenced by what other people think or say of you? Ooh, that was a dagger. So, are you easily influenced by what other people think or say of you? Do you care to people because of their social or financial status? Or do you cater to people because of their social or financial status? Whom do you believe to be the greatest person living? In what respect is this person superior to yourself? How much time have you devoted to studying and answering these questions? At least, and he says in parentheses, at least one day is necessary for the analysis and answering of the entire list. Calmness of thought. Wow. I love it, Laura. So I just want to say these were some deep questions. Even me reading this right now, obviously with every question there's an answer that comes, but one thing I'm going to do with these questions is actually go over these in depth myself, because he suggests like a whole entire day is worth being spent to these. And yeah, that's what's so cool I think about this book, is because like this is like self-analysis, right? So you can repeat these readings over and over and over again, and the answers that we find from this, like they're worth their weight in gold. Personally, like it doesn't, I can't put a dollar sign on this, on the answers to these, because this is cool. Like what is it he says, Napoleon Hill says in a previous chapter, what's worth more than the material possessions you'll acquire from this book is that peace of mind, knowing like, okay, like I am the master of my fate, I'm the captain of my soul. So we're doing some deep work with this stuff, and it's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm gonna read 3 more pages and just wrap it up. So that's the end of the questions, and if you want to repeat them, I'll have the recording in this Facebook group and on my YouTube channel. So you can just find I think it's best to watch the recording on YouTube. So if you want to just search me up on YouTube, it's just Michael Music, and you'll see all these recordings. So I'm gonna wrap up with 3 more pages, and then and then I definitely want to hear your thoughts. If you have answered all these questions truthfully, you know more about yourself than the majority of people. Study the questions carefully, come back to them once each week for several months, and be astounded at the amount of additional knowledge of great value to yourself you will have gained by the simple method of answering the questions truthfully. If you are not certain concerning the answers to some of the questions, seek the counsel of those who know you well, especially those who have no motive in flattering you, and see yourself through their eyes. The experience will be astonishing. You have absolute control over but one thing, and that is your thoughts. That's a weird way to put it. I think what Napoleon Hill is saying, you have absolute over your thoughts, and you're like, that is the one thing you control entirely. This is the most significant and inspiring of all facts known to man. It reflects man's divine nature. This divine prerogative is the sole means by which you may control your own destiny. If you fail to control your own mind, you may be sure you will control nothing else. Damn. Okay, so if you fail to control your own mind, you may be sure you will control nothing else. Hey, at least we got to start, right? Like we want to, like kind of become the master of our fate, the captain of our soul. We have to really just start controlling our own mind. Okay. We're at the bottom of page 366. If you must be careless with your possessions, let it be in connection with material things. Your mind is your spiritual estate. Protect it and use it with the care to which divine royalty is entitled. You are given a willpower for this purpose. What is he saying? He says your mind is your spiritual estate, right? What does that mean? Your mind is your spiritual estate. I'm going to leave that question open-ended because I need to hear from you, and protect it and use it with the care to which divine royalty is entitled. You were given a willpower for this purpose. So why were you given a willpower? Right? It's essentially to protect your mind from all outside negative influences and to essentially focus on the state of the wish fulfilled, right? I know Neville Goddard talks a lot about the state of the wish fulfilled, and I'm gonna be doing a lesson soon on that afterwards, combining that idea and the chapter on persistence, and that will definitely be a really, really interesting live to talk about. But yeah, that's the reason we were given our willpower faculty. Okay. Ultimately, there is no legal protection against those who, either by design or ignorance, poison the minds of others by negative suggestion. This is going to be interesting. So he's saying there's unfortunately no legal protection. There's no laws in the United States or wherever you may live that are imposed upon others who actually poison the minds of others by negative suggestion. And check this out. Napoleon Hill says, this form of destruction should be punishable by heavy legal penalties because it may, and often does, destroy one's chances of acquiring material things which are protected by law. So he's saying that the person that essentially, becomes a negative influence to others and does it on purpose, they like those consequences should genuinely be punished by law, according to Napoleon Hill. And that's how serious it is, right? Like it's a crime, even though we don't report it. Like that's one of the biggest crimes of all. Because what are you doing? You're destroying someone's dreams. That's so interesting. Men with negative minds tried to convince Thomas A. Edison that he could not build a machine that would record and reproduce the human voice because they said no one else has ever produced such a machine. Edison did not believe them. He knew that the mind could produce anything the mind could conceive and believe, and that knowledge was the thing that lifted the great Edison above the common herd. And yeah, Laura, your mind is your spiritual state. Like, remember how state keeps coming up over and over and over again. And it's cool because, we talk about this, and I truly think that the state of mind is the secret within Think and Grow Rich, right? And I'll touch more upon that, but like it's so cool. Like your mind is your spiritual estate, and then we're talking about state of mind. Like I think two have a correlation, and if any thoughts pop up for that, I'm all ears. So men with negative minds told F.W. Woolworth he would go broke trying to run a store on 5 and 10 cent sales. He did not believe them. He knew that he could do anything within reason if he backed his plans with faith. Exercising his right to keep other men's negative suggestions out of his mind, he piled up a fortune of more than $100 million. Men with negative minds told George Washington he could not hope to win against the vastly superior forces of the British, but he exercised his divine right to believe. Therefore, this book was published under the protection of the Stars and Stripes, while the name of Lord Cornwallis has been all but forgotten. Doubting Thomases scoffed scornfully when Henry Ford tried out his first crudely built automobile on the streets of Detroit. Some said the thing never would become practical. Others said no one would pay money for such a contraption. Ford said, "I'll belt the earth with dependable motor cars," and he did. His decision to trust his own judgment has already piled up a fortune far greater than the next 5 generations of his descendants can squander. For the benefits of those seeking vast riches, let it be remembered that practically the sole difference between Henry Ford and a majority of the more than 100,000 men who work for him is this: Ford has a mind and controls it. The others have minds which they do not try to control. Henry Ford has been repeatedly mentioned because he is an astounding example of what a man with a mind of his own and the will to control it can accomplish. His record knocks the foundation from under that time worn alibi. I never had a chance. Ford never had a chance either, but he created an opportunity and backed it with persistence until it made him richer than Croesus. I love that. So Napoleon Hill saying Ford had an opportunity and backed it with persistence. Right? Like, it isn't persistence kind of the key that wraps all these principles together? Like, we have all these 13 principles, and like, what's that? Like, what's like that ribbon that like really bow ties all this together? And Napoleon Hill is saying like it's like persistence, and I truly do agree with him. This is a habit I truly want to develop, and I am developing. Mind control is the result of self-discipline and habit. You either control your mind or it controls you. There is no halfway compromise. The most practical of all methods for controlling the mind is the habit of keeping it busy with a definite purpose backed by a definite plan. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. So the most practical of all methods for controlling your mind is the habit of keeping it busy with a definite purpose backed by a definite plan. Right? What was I going to say? I was going to bring up Outwitting the Devil, right? Because I remember Napoleon Hill also talked about drifters, and essentially drifters don't have their definite purpose in place, and essentially their mind gets filled with the negative portion of the atom, or like the devil's thoughts, and that's like that's why it's so key. He says here that you want to have a habit of keeping your mind busy with a definite purpose backed by a definite plan. Okay, so what I'm getting is like essentially like you can't have two counteracting thoughts at the same time. Either it's going to be positive or it's going to be negative, right? And yeah, it can be like positive, like hoorah, hooray, but he's saying like keep it positive with your definite purpose, and there won't even be room for any fear and doubt because you can't hold two different thoughts at the same time in your mind. Um, I think this sentence is powerful. I'm gonna keep going. I'm not sure what to say. Um, but I'll repeat it. So mind control is the result of self-discipline and habit. You either control your mind or it controls you. There is no halfway compromise. The most practical of all methods for controlling the mind is the habit of keeping it busy with a definite purpose backed by a definite plan. Study the record of any man who achieves noteworthy success, and you will observe that he has control over his mind. Moreover, that he exercises that control and directs it toward the attainment of definite objectives. Without this control, success is not possible. And that is that. So, persistence from the right state of mind equals success. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm gonna pause right here, and I want to ask you, what did you learn? What did you like? And I'll start. What I learned from the self-analysis questions is essentially getting reminded, do I have a definite purpose? And as I've been studying Napoleon Hill, I'm always looking for that right sentence, like, all right, what's going to lead me to my definite purpose? Like, what is it? And it's something I truly do need to decide upon. I notice, like, they keep asking, like even with Sean, he'll ask, like, what do you really want, right? And it's like, why am I not yet giving him an answer, right? And essentially, it's like that question, just like during the self-analysis test, personally hit me the hardest. Because it's like, okay, like, truly, if you want to master this book, you have to really decide. It starts with a decision of what you want, and make that my definite major purpose, because everything else seems to follow after that. And it's like, yeah, this is good stuff, but is it applicable if I don't have my definite major purpose in hand? And so that question definitely hit me the most. And then additionally, I like the habit of just keeping your mind busy with that definite major purpose and backing it by definite plans. Because if I keep it busy with that definite major purpose, then there is no room for the other stuff. And it's interesting. Like, it's almost like I want to, like, clear out my head like a vacuum, have, emptiness, and then just fill it up with this definite major purpose. I think that the answer to those questions give you an idea of what your DMP is. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So what I can do now, Laura, is I don't know if you have the book, but I'm gonna read these questions again. I don't think reading them, because I was kind of reading them, like right away with one another, and I I think each question deserves a bit more of a pause, right? Like that silence in between, because like the answer is there. The answer is with every one of those questions. It's already there, and Napoleon Hill recommends spending a day on these questions. So that's pretty cool. Like, spending a day with these questions in the back of this book on the self-analysis test, and look at these with the purpose of figuring out what my definite major purpose is. That's some cool action steps to take. Um, so that's cool stuff. All right, well, I want to thank you, Laura, for tuning in. Thank you all for those of you who are watching the recording. And I will leave you with this until we meet again in time and space. For now, everybody, bye, Laura. Have a great one. And YouTube, I will see you all at the next event.